Okay, now we're going to do the scenario manager. So first of all, for scenario manager, what we're going to do is we're looking at a bond here. So if you haven't gotten to this part, you need to make sure you've gone through the entire section on the bonds and understand how to get your amortization schedule. I just want to show you how to use a tool called scenario manager. So what scenario manager does is says, well, if we change something, let's say we change the market rate, and the market rate is 8%. What is that going to mean to other things? And we get to choose what those other things are. So what is that going to mean to, in our example, our proceeds? And what is it going to mean to our interest expense if that market rate goes down or goes up? So let's say we're looking at this and we're like, well, I don't know, we might have a couple of scenarios that could occur. Maybe it could go down, maybe it could go up. Let's go ahead and see how that would look, right? So first things first, you make sure you've already named all your cells. The naming is going to become important in this for our display reasons. So for example, if we go to formulas and we go to name manager, you want to make sure you have everything named that you need named. Okay? So let's go ahead and look at how we would do this. So we're going to go ahead and click on Scenario Manager. And actually, I want to start from scratch. So let me delete all of these. And we're going to start from scratch. So we have, let's say, two scenarios. What if our market rate goes down to 10% and then goes up to 12%? So we'll add one scenario, and you can name the scenario whatever you want. You can name it down. You can name it 1, 2, 3, 4 like they do in the book, whatever you want to call the scenario by changing, and we want to use the names in this. So we could say, you know, change the B6, right? You could do that, but that's going to cause us a little bit of problems later on. We're going to call it market, and then under the name of the, we've already named that cell market rate. So we're going to call it that, and then we're going to say okay. Now this is going down, so what if it went down to 0.10%, so 10% instead of 11%. That would be our first scenario, and then we're going to add another scenario. Let's say it goes up, or you could call it scenario 2, and we're going to again change that to market rate, and then there you go. There's our two scenarios, and in this case it's going to go up to 12% in scenario 2. So up and down. Okay, so now we got these two scenarios. So we want to summarize these and get a report on this. So we want the resulting cells to be the cells called proceeds. So we've named that cell range proceeds. And we want to name the other one total interest expense. Okay. So if we go, references aren't valid. You know why? Because we haven't named them yet. Now, we say, well, we don't want to name them. Let's just say B9 and interest expenses C19. We'll use that instead. Will that work? Yeah, it does work. But here's the problem. See how we got the market rate, and that's because we named the range market rate. And we got B9 and C19. Which one is proceeds and which one's total interest? We get these things here. We got to fix that. We got to go back and we got to name our cells. So we're going to name the cells real quick like we did before. I'm going to just right click names, define the name to proceeds. Okay. And then interest, I'm going to name this total interest expense. So I'm going to right click and name it total interest expense, and I'm going to call it that. And now I'm going to rerun that forecast. I'm going to rerun the scenario manager again. I've already got the scenarios in there, so now I'm just going to do a summary, and I want to call it proceeds and total interest expense. I'll do OK. And now when we run the scenario, I get proceeds and total interest expense, and it makes so much more sense. When we did it wrong, we just got the cell names, and if we had used we had not named those cells for market rate, we would have got another number here. We would have got what? We would have got B6 for there. So luckily we named that one, but we didn't know which ones was proceeds, which one's total interest expense. But when we name it, we see we get the names here. And then we have two scenarios. So at 11%, here's the proceeds, here's total interest expense. If it goes down, we see what would happen. If it goes up, we see what would happen. And we can compare these two scenarios, and we get a nice, cool little report that we have here. If you do go in and you learn how to use pivot tables, which is a little bit more than this class goes through, then so let me go over here. And you learn how to, instead of using a scenario summary, you use pivot tables. I'm not going to go through that because it's a little bit more complicated, but what you'll find is if you are doing this, any kind of work where you might need this, using pivot tables could really help you in the future. It's more on the advanced side of this course, but it's well worth it if you want to go to that next level in your career. It could really help you out. It could really make you look, you know, pretty fancy and professional and know what you're doing. So anyhow, hopefully that was helpful for you. Good luck.